We do have a point of weakness in terms of the organization being centralized often. Anything anybody want to say about that? How do you address that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we'll do, it's not perfect, and like you say, Mr. Skycoin, I forget your name, sorry.
Synth.
Synth, yeah. It's about practicality over idealism. So, for example, one of the things that we'll do with 3Speak.
Experts predict in 7 years, 10% of the world's economy will be in crypto-based assets. TOKENMETRICS uses AI to find invisible patterns in data to help you invest and trade in crypto. We give you AI and access to crypto experts at the best price.
And I hope to talk again to Saber about this maybe.
Oh, you will.
The idea of a kind of franchise model where you're white labeling the technology out to other registered businesses in different parts of the world, and then they have to use a certain amount of your IP in exchange for some value, but they have to store your content in their servers. And the idea being, of course, when you have one of those running, it's easy to shut down, it's easy to corrupt. But if you can start to get a community of people doing the same thing, so maybe they're not sharing on an IPFS, but they're creating their own servers in their own locations, and that's being funded by the project. And they're running their own instances, and that instance of the software will allow them to monetize because there's a business model built in. The community itself gets some ownership of that and gets some return or a cut of the profits of that. And so there's an incentive to then grow the network out and make a centralized model, but it would have the principles of decentralization in it, and it would be incredibly difficult to shut down. And the idea is you just have to try and build as many partners as possible out so that you've got various instances of your software in various different countries running. And of course, the idea behind that is that because we run on an international anarchism level, hopefully what would happen is if one country wants to censor the content on that platform, when that platform has managed to copy its content to another one of its franchisees in a different country, and that country doesn't necessarily agree politically with the country that's shutting the platform down, they've now got an incentive to keep that data running. It's the same thing as with Bitcoin and the exchanges when China stopped trading. Overnight, you saw $1 billion worth of business move to Korea and Japan, and they hate each other. But this is the fantastic thing about decentralization. There's an inherent incentive for people to do the opposite of what their political opposites are doing.
Yes. Yes.
So that's got to be one of the drives, and it feels like it's more practical, but it's not a truly decentralized model as we're on a blockchain. But in terms of dealing with large amounts of data on the video side of things, it would be a practical solution.
That would be one way, and I know there are other solutions afoot, which you two, Matt and Saber, may discover in due course when you talk to each other. But what about white labeling? What about white labeling Atomicdex? Can Piratechain be white labeled? Could Skycoin, Skyminer be white labeled? Because that would promote decentralization.
I mean, technically, yeah, we can be white labeled because you can just fork our code. I mean, look at Arrow, for example. You know, they're basically the same code as us, but they don't have DPoW, or they originally were the same code as us without DPoW. Now they're slightly different code. It's been modified over time.
Okay, let me just say, so Arrow's, I didn't know about Arrow's, another privacy coin, forked off Piratechain. It doesn't have delayed proof of work, which for people who are watching who don't know what that is, every 10 minutes, all the transactions are notarized onto the Komodo blockchain, and then every 10 minutes on the Komodo blockchain, they're all notarized onto the Bitcoin blockchain, which means it's resistant to 51% attacks. You can only go back 10 minutes. There isn't the computing power in the world to attack all three chains at the same time.
I believe it's actually every 2 minutes on the Komodo, right, Jason?
Correct, yeah. It could be set based off of the chain, but yeah, typically it's around 1 to 2 minutes for faster chains onto Komodo, and then Komodo sends a transaction every block into Bitcoin. Yeah, so you were correct, yes.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. All right, anything anybody else wants to say regarding decentralization that's important to be said that hasn't been covered?
Well, yes. I wanted to bring up the point of decentralization via atomic swap technology. So this is something, while it's rather new and it's still, in the process of adoption, I believe this is something that is, pretty paramount to, to not just decentralization, but your own personal financial safety and security. So if cryptocurrency was what gave us the ability to store value in a way that to something that's not tied to any government-backed currency, then we also need a way to be able to exchange this value without any third party in between. And right now, like with all these centralized exchanges, conducting the 99.9999% of all trading and exchange activity, and then how can we say that our ecosystem is really the crypto ecosystem as a whole is very decentralized when these few entities are the ones holding everybody's money, and it sort of is counterintuitive to the whole point of cryptocurrency to begin with, was to be able to hold your own store of value. So it's decentralization. It appears in many forms. So store of value being one, and exchangeability being another, development being another. So decentralization can be many things to many people, but I just wanted to bring up that atomic swaps, while it just seems like some space age technology, it's something that's very important for people, because consistently governments of the world are trying to basically become a middleman into everybody's exchanges, and that's I view at least as a infringement of a fundamental human right. If I have some object, I should be able to exchange it with whoever I choose, provided that they're a willing participant in the exchange. And the fact that governments are trying to get in there and register everybody and saying, oh, you can't trade here if you're from a certain nation, or you can't trade with this person because they're on some list or something. It's sort of ridiculous, very against what cryptocurrency was all about.
Rich, can I ask you a question that's just come to my mind from the point that Jason's made? Isn't it interesting, going back to what Synth was saying about how we were all ideologues in the early days of crypto? And I know I got involved in it in 2013, and I found it was a fantastic time, and then a few months to years later, it started to become greed-driven and money-driven, and as the money flowed in, and people's psyche changed. Now, isn't it interesting that I think all of us sitting around this table agree that it's incredibly important to have these different factions decentralized. Yet, as a community, we've chosen to use the centralized exchanges, right? How crazy is that? It's like human nature to naturally go towards the centralized solution with convenience rather than the decentralized solution.
Well, Matt, part of it is, I think, right? And thank you for that point. I want to say back to Jason. Jason, you don't know. I've lost count of the number of people I've said, hey, listen, Komodo can do true atomic swaps on a decentralized platform with no sign-off or anything, cross-chain. And people have said to me, no, that's not possible. I remember when CA333 on my channel told me that they were doing this, and I didn't believe him, right? And so there is an advance of technology. And one of the things that you pointed to, both of you, is the risk of regulatory failure. I had some pirate chain on AuxBits, which I was going to trade, and I've lost that because of that hack last week. But there's also the regulatory failure where the government agencies say, okay, now you got to do KYC. Now we want you to track every transaction. Or the IRS going to Coinbase and saying, give us details of all your transactions and stuff and account holders. And then Coinbase got to go to the court to stop the IRS from doing that. So there's a regulatory failure, which I think the atomic swap technology takes care of. But it is new. Who believes? I don't believe it. And I've done it. I've used it a couple of times with no hassles whatsoever.
It's a very interesting.
The biggest thing, honestly, man, is that I don't think a true DEX was really possible until recently.
Yeah.
Because there has to, if you look at all the other DEXs, like CryptoBridge said they were a DEX. No, they're not. You have to store your coins inside of their exchange, and then they give you proxy tokens to trade with. So that's not decentralized. And there's all these other exchanges that call themselves dexes, but they're not actually dexes. Komodo's Atomicdex is a true dex. You don't have to store anything in there. It's just all peer-to-peer.
Yeah, and there are some like Fork Delta is a dex, but it's only ERC20. Is cross-chain as well. And I did tell John McAfee about that as well, and he didn't believe me. Sorry, Matt, you wanted to say something.
Well, it's just a very interesting thing because in terms of practicality, the rubber meets the road with Saber and I, right? Because we're rewarding content creators and we're giving the ability, for example, on our platform, certain people will be able to advertise if they choose to. Our ideology says, let's just keep it pure crypto. Let's keep it pure off the fiat system so that there's no kind of, it's very difficult to push us for KYC and things like that. However, at the same time, we need to verify who these content creators are often, especially the big ones, because we get a lot of pushback from the community. So we have a verification system in place where we have to show, look, these people are genuinely the people who are releasing the content. And then if they're then cashing out of the system, okay, if they're cashing out in fiat through a Komodo style system, great. But at some point, someone's going to come and knock on our door and say, these guys are clearly earning all the money on your platform. Where's the evidence that this isn't some sort of money laundering system? And especially if we bring fiat payments into our system as well, which will, for us, it's good for business, and ultimately we have to be sustainable in terms of bringing money in. But at the same time, it limits us because we would then get a lot of question marks over using a DEX, a full DEX, in terms of the KYC side. So it's something that we haven't decided where we are on yet, but certainly the ideological side of me says stay away from fiat and just keep it pure. And that's what we have at the moment. But as time goes on, no doubt we'll want to in some way create a fiat gateway into our platform so that the normies of the world that start to get involved in crypto and really interested in it can start paying that way as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what we do yet. But.
Matt, if you leave it long enough, there won't be fiat in any couple of years. The euro, the pound, all gone. And we'll be transacting in satoshis. There's your solution. Just wait it out. Synth, were you
so there's a really
go on, Synth.
Oh, so it's really funny how this evolved. So we started with the decentralization, and some guy had like a PHP script, and you were sending like Bitcoin to Litecoin. And I remember there wasn't even any images or a JSS file, like a CSS file on this website for the Litecoin exchange. It was just like a spreadsheet, and there were no images, and it looked like something from like 2000, maybe 1992, like before Netscape even. And so we started there with these decentralized exchanges and no KYC, and then we ended up, getting consolidation with all the trading basically happening on, Binance or two or three exchanges in China like OKX and so on. And I think so. It ended up being 80% of the market being in China, and then of course the U.S. shut down every blockchain company. And I sort of met people. I met this guy who are like really up there in the government, or even what you would call like deep state, or basically like lawyers that were dealing with people that were getting lawsuits. And the U.S. government subpoenaed every single blockchain company, every exchange, every document. They were preparing. They had like the DOJ doing illegal subpoenas to get information for the SEC that was in violation of some federal rule that said that like there's a process they have to go to get this data, but they sidetracked that process illegally to have that DOJ do this to get data so they could set up prosecutions, and they basically shut down all the blockchain companies in the United States. And what was really crazy was it moved to China, which I would never, when I started Bitcoin, it was like Ron Paul dollars and libertarians. And I never thought couldn't even imagine that the whole crypto space was going to basically move to Singapore and Hong Kong, and that it was going to be 80% Chinese in terms of volume. And so we started out with this decentralization and these DEX. And then what happened recently in the news is every day, China banned Bitcoin, China banned Bitcoin, China banned Bitcoin. And that's all you hear. Then the president of China one day gets on television and he says, we love blockchain. Blockchain's ours now. We're going to call it Blockchain Plus. And that's the Chinese blockchain. So that the government then raided, they had a raid at the Binance office and the exchanges. They sent the police there and they said, here's our new blockchain strategy. You're going to do this. And then remember, CZ says, no, there weren't any police. They were just there at the Starbucks buying coffee and blah, blah, blah. And that raid didn't happen. And then the Chinese media had their state guy go on TV and say, yeah, we raided their office. He's lying. And they basically they did this thing called Blockchain Plus. And what they decided to do, what I think they're going to do is I think they're going to issue a crypto yuan. There's not going to be any KYC on it. And they say, you want to bring your money here? Bring your money. We don't care where it came from. And they're going to say, bring your money to China. We love. And they're going to have an exchange, maybe 2 or 3 of them that are controlled by the government. And I guarantee they're not going to give the KYC records to the U.S. government or any other government. I guarantee that. If they're going to be, and I guarantee that they're going to end up putting these Chinese tech stocks, their crypto equities, on the blockchain. And I know for Blockchain Plus, they're only putting industry projects. So unless you're doing an industry application of blockchain, they're not going to let you list on these exchanges. And I also know from the trading I did, and I did look at a hedge fund, I did mathematical modeling, all the liquidity goes to the person who has the highest liquidity. So I know that they're going to even probably be investing government money in these blockchain projects that they're sponsoring, and that these exchanges are going to be government supported. And I know that they're going to be vetting the project. So I think that you basically, these companies are going to be moving to Shanghai or moving to China, and they're going to have to set up an industry project and do this or that if they want to even get access to these exchanges. And I think one of the things that, and I can't confirm, but I think one of the things that they raided Binance with the police to make an example out of them was that they're going to delist a bunch of coins. And Binance doesn't want to do that. They want to make money. They don't care if it's a shit coin. They make money no matter what you trade on. But they said if it's not a Blockchain Plus project and it's not, respectable at it doesn't meet a certain quality threshold, we don't want it to be liquid. So I think we're going to see a consolidation in the blockchain where you're going to see maybe 800 to 1,200 crypto assets that are basically kicked off the only 3 exchanges with real liquidity. And those are going to have to go to DEX. So I think as long as we had Binance, we didn't really need the DEX. But those people are going to be pissed. It's how do I trade my coins? I own this, but I can't trade it. What's going on here? So, and I never thought in 100 years that this was, it's, China bans Bitcoin. And the next day it's we love blockchain as long as we control it. And then this became an issue with the trade war. So if China does that, and then the U.S. government's going to be blockchain is Satan. We need to regulate blockchain. And they're going to kill whatever blockchain companies they had left. You saw the bid license, and these people are just completely, and SEC and the DOJ, these guys are completely out of control. The U.S. had the opportunity to control the blockchain industry.
Sorry, hold on a second. You and I we can talk about this further when we record our interview, right? But I'm conscious of the time, right? I really appreciate it.
Oh,
yeah. The thing that you're pointing to is, I suppose, the tussle between centralization and decentralization.
It's just a weapon. It's just one side picks it up, the bludgeon, the other side in the head. They don't care what the thing is. It's just can I use this to hurt the other guy, my enemy? That's all they,
Which is human beings being human beings wherever human beings are for the whole of human history. Now, I want to thank each and every single one of you, and I include in this David from Holochain who had to leave. He did let me know beforehand. Thank you so much, Jason from Atomicdex and Komodo platform, Matt from 3Speak Online, Captain Draeth from Piratechain, Synth from Skycoin, Saber from Bittube. I'll have links to all the websites in the description below. Go join the Telegram groups. Go investigate. Go subscribe. Would you like me to do more of these? Which projects would you like to see on? And between now and when I see you next, please keep filling your pockets with various profits from Crypto Jason and Crypto Matt and Crypto Draeth and Crypto Saber and Crypto Synth and Crypto Rich. All the best. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Oh man, I should have scheduled 3 hours for this because we were just getting into it.
We're just getting started. Part 2. We need part 2.
We should do a late night one with some beers or something. Not that I drink, guys.
How long was that?
Sorry, Sid?
How long was that? 2 hours?
No,
About an hour and a half.
Hour and a half, like I said.